So welcome everybody. My name is Zishan. I'm actually from the UK. I have my own business called Super Leads Media, which is a digital marketing agency here in the UK. Of course, we can work anywhere in the world, as last year has proven that we may need to work everywhere in the world, so we can help as many people as we possibly can. And today we have a wonderful guest, a guest that I got the opportunity to meet a few times, but then last week we really got to meet and learn about one another. This is Brigadier Sushil Bhasin. Hopefully, I've got that correct. And
Yeah.
just to give you a quick introduction to him, but before I do that, what I will say and advise everyone is to have pen and paper ready. If you have any questions, please do leave those questions below. As they come, we'll try our best to answer those as we go. And so just to give a quick introduction as to who our guest is today, some of you may already know him, but the ones that don't know him, we will try our best to actually save this live as well, and share that around as well to anyone that didn't get to watch it. So Sushil is, he's from Mumbai. He has 34 years of experience training in the army, 15 years of experience in the corporate world. He's a TEDx talker. He's an international global speaker as well. And he's a time consciousness coach. And if he's not busy already, he's also an author of 6 books, which he may also point out in this wonderful live that we have together. And without delaying any further, Sushil, let's get straight into it. Really, I think probably the best place to start when it comes to time management is really, what is it? What is time management? How do we define it? And then what's the importance of having good time management as well?
Okay, so before I get down to that, Zishan, let me tell you that I was born in a very mediocre middle-class family, but my parents, and I'm indeed very grateful to them, they brought me under very strict discipline, and there was a time routine which we followed. And for me, it became quite a DNA to do things on time and to respect time. And then I studied in Sainik School, which is a military school. And from there, I went into the academy, the National Defense Academy, the Indian Military Academy, and then 34 years in the army. So in my career, the importance of time got stronger and stronger as I went. But when I came into the corporate world and I started doing camps, and I used to get the corporates coming to my camp. So my very first camp with corporates, now we are supposed to start the program at 9 in the morning, and they didn't even turn up. And 9:30 they were not there, and then 10 o'clock the bus came in, and then they leisurely had their breakfast. There was no sense of urgency and things like that. And I said, what's this happening? I mean, I was not used to it, and I was very upset and on. And then I found that that was quite a routine. Everyone would do similarly. And then I discovered for myself that it was not only in India. I also happened to experience this in other countries as well. And what I realized was that people somewhere in organizations or in civil life were not paying attention to time as much as they should. And that got me thinking, why is it that it's not happening? I'll go a little back in time, that it was somewhere in 1990 when I was having a stroll with one of my commanding officers, and I was posted in a forward area called Rajouri. And my commanding officer asked me, and we had become very good friends. He was very little senior to me. And so he asked me, he said, Sushi, tell me one thing. How is it that I see you in parties? I see you doing everything. I even see you sending about 1,000 birthday and greeting cards in the year. Nobody misses your birthday. Nobody misses getting a greeting on his birthday ever. How do you manage all this? And I realized that there was something, I don't know how I was managing, but I was certainly doing more in a day than what others were doing. And some of my colleagues started saying, oh, this guy knows how to get 25 hours in a day. And I started writing down, what am I doing differently? And then when I came into the corporate world, and I was telling you, I got surprised when I was doing leadership and team building training. And when I would ask a corporate, what would you like people to do in team building? And they would say, no, let's do team building. So what happened? I made a template and I asked people, can you please tick mark what of these, there are about 10, 15 attributes of team that I had noted down. And I said, which of these would you like me to highlight? Because in a training program, let's not go for more than 3 or 4. Let's focus on 3, 4 attributes or elements of team building that we should focus on. And I found that this subject of time management would come up every time. And I used to wonder, why do people want to be trained on time management when I know it from my childhood? So I started putting all these things together and then wrote a book called $1 Million Second. And this $1 Million Second talks about the value, importance, and relevance of time. And when people ask me, why did you name it like $1 Million Second? Where does name come from? And we did struggle on whether it should be called the 25th hour. That was an alternate title that I thought for the book. And the story goes back to I'd heard from one of my young officers that when he was facing an enemy officer in an encounter, and he says, I realized that we were facing each other at a point blank range with our weapons in our hands. And I realized that now only one of us can survive. And the one who survives will be the one who pulls his trigger first. And he says, sir, I'm telling you in all this 2-3 minutes, but there was no time to think. There was no time to take advice or ask somebody or think about it. One had to act. And I just pulled my trigger and this officer fell on my knees. And I realized, what if he had pressed the trigger even 1 second earlier? Then I would have been lying there. And therefore, I realized that isn't that 1 second worth millions of dollars? Ask a person who has faced these situations, and then you know the importance of time. And sometimes you regret all your life because you made a mistake. So, I wrote to lots of people and said, if you have a story about a person, about something that you did in life, about time, which really gave you an advantage, or else you goofed it up and you really regretted and learned a big lesson from a mistake you made, give me a story. So in this book, in the last chapter, which is the 11th chapter, I have about 15 such stories from people who talk about their value, their time that they learned. So therefore, today when I say time is a currency, which is far more important than money. And if you talk of a simple definition, what is time? Then people say time is money. And I said, no, time is not money. Time is much, much more valuable than money, because you can regain your lost money, but you can't regain your time.
Yep.
And I also tell you a little story about a nurse in a hospice where, she saw thousands of patients dying. And she said, almost everyone on his deathbed never said, I wish I had more money. But almost everyone said, I wish I had more time. And I said, should we all not realize that we have come to this planet with a fixed amount of time, and we want to do a lot of things. And if we don't do it well enough, we will be left with a lot of to-do list when we die. So can you complete that to-do list well in time, which means lots to do in that limited time. So time management is something which you can't do without. You don't do it today and you will regret later. Yeah, thank you, Hetal. She's saying a must-read book, $1 Million Second. And Hetal just did a very good review on YouTube. It's there on my channel. It's there on her challenge called Parent Station, just 2-3 days back. Okay, so that was what I was wanting to emphasize on, that time management is something. You see, Zishan, I'll tell you another thing. We all breathe. And if we don't breathe, what are we? Tell me. If you stop breathing, what are you?
Dead.
You are dead. So something as vital as that, that's something without which we can't live. We don't talk about it. We don't get up in the morning and say, hello, Zishan, how are you breathing today? Oh, I'm breathing very well. We don't talk about it. Similarly, we don't talk about time. We didn't even think about time. But time is equally important, just like that breath of ours. Every second is as good as that breath. Every second is equal to $1 million. And the earlier we realize it, the better it is. The earlier, and that is why I'm very keen to get down to students, to talk to young people, because those are the people who will gain the maximum. In my life, I say, look at the hourglass of your life. I find most of the sand has come down and very little sand is left on top. In the case of young children, there's much more sand on top, very little below. And I want to say that the rest of my life is going to be the best of my life. I want to see every grain, every element, every atom of that, every particle, whatever is the, every grain that's coming down, it must come down with value. It must come down with happiness. It must come down with something that doesn't get wasted. So I'm not prepared to waste any time at all now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's very true. It's very true. With regards to time, um, people don't look at it as. I mean, I think one thing that I've noticed on my journey, as a business owner and entrepreneur, you look at people that really are, very successful. You look at them and they often say that we're trying to buy time and we're trying to make time, but how do we get time? How do we get more time is kind of what they're looking for, really. They often say, like, we can always make money. You can always make money. You can always go here and there and enjoy your life, but you can never get the time. You can't get that minute that just spent. We've been on this live for 15 minutes almost, and we can't get that 15 minutes back, right? So how do we actually get more of that back? By doing more, by taking advantage of the time that you do have. And I think that's quite important. What are some of them? I mean, I'm sure you've had many, students, and I know you do a lot of training programs, so you see a lot of people in person. And hopefully, once we get out of the pandemic, you'll see them again in more of your programs and your in-person meetings and in-person conferences. What are some of the questions that you get that quite often that you think that students, as well as business owners, as well as people, office workers, can truly benefit from when it comes to time and time management?
See, if you look at the problems people have, I've identified that there are a couple of things which most people fail. And that number one problem which people find is procrastination. Most people procrastinate and they don't know how to get out of it. So in my time management programs, I teach them how to stop procrastinating. Now, I also have about 150 plus videos on my YouTube on time management, which is a different playlist. And I've covered procrastination there. Another thing is a misconception, a myth that most of us have, that you can save time by multitasking. And I've discovered only recently, just about 2-3 years back, because I went into an argument with a person who said the human brain is designed to do only one thing at a time. It only can concentrate on one thing. It can't concentrate on two things at the same time. And therefore, multitasking is not good. And I said, no, but I do a lot of multitasking, and I was a very proud multitasker. But then when he said, and I got into details and I discovered for myself that that was a big mistake I was doing. And therefore, I stopped multitasking. And I've got about 5 videos series to talk about what are the advantages and disadvantages of doing multitasking. So that is another thing. When I talk about problems, I also find people talking about the problem of a work-life balance. Most people come back with that they don't know how to balance that time. They get overwhelmed with the type of things they have to do, and there's a lot of issue there. So putting all these things together, I would say that there has to be a method in that madness. Whatever issues you're facing about time, you have to find a balance. You have to strike, you have to find the right way of doing things. And you have to be mindful. So I talk a lot about time consciousness, which means that I'm conscious about my value of time. I understand what time is, and that's why I have in my program 7 elements of time management. Those 7 elements, which are generally not talked about, and you'll not find, of course, some of them are something that I discovered in my own little package. Nothing is new, but sometimes an idea of putting it across is new. So I talk about the hourly worth, which I picked up from Brian Tracy, who also is a person I've learned a lot from, and he's also endorsed my book. And he taught me this thing called hourly worth. Do you understand? Are you aware of, are you mindful of the value of your 1 hour? So that means if you sleep for 1 hour, you know the type of loss of time. And if you really was, you needed that sleep, it energized you, then it is a good value of that 1 hour that you slept. You go for a movie for 2 hours and you come back totally re-energized, rejuvenated, entertained. It's good. It's good. So you got a very high value for it. But if you have been with negative people, you have, you have a lot of negative thoughts coming to you. Maybe that hour was a badly spent hour. It's got less value. So this is the way we look at hourly value. The other thing I talk about is ROTI, which is return on time invested. Now we all understand ROI and we all understand the importance of a financial return which we get out of a financial investment. And sometimes there's a very interesting story where a guy in sales, he was dealing with bulk SMSs, and he realized that they have a list of about 2 lakh people whom they send out SMSs to. And he realized that all those, there are good about 50,000 people in that list who really never even responded to a SMS throughout the year. So why are we wasting our money on those people? So he got to his analyst and said, let's sit down and work out, can we reduce this list from 2 lakhs to 1.5 lakhs? Because we generally heard a term called every penny saved is a penny earned. So if we can save some pennies there, we have earned some pennies. So let's do that. This is wasteful. So they sat down and did some calculations, went through that list and kept deleting the number of people who were, of course, they used some apps or some software to find out something, but they took a lot of time to identify those 50,000 people and deleted them and brought the list to 1.5 lakhs. Then they very proudly went to the CEO and said, this is what we have done. What an achievement. We saved 7,500 rupees by doing this exercise. So he said, that's very good. You saved that money, but tell me at what cost did you do that? So they said, no, there's no cost. We didn't do anything. We use our existing apps. So normally when we say at what cost, we always think of only the cost of money, but we don't include the cost of time. So this CEO is a little smart, and not many CEOs also think about time. He just, made a quick calculation on his writing pad, and he said, the two of you, if I see the type of salary I give you, I've just calculated that. So he asked him, how much time did you spend? So he said, we took about 7 hours. So he said 7 hours, and you said you took 2 days, so 14 hours, 14 and 2, 28 hours. So 28 hours, I just calculated your salary. You have, used your time worth 75,000 rupees to save 7,500 rupees. Not even 10% saving you have done. Actually, you have invested a lot of time, and that has cost me money. I have another story which is there in my book, and I met this gentleman who was the personal secretary to one of those British CEOs of a company called Brown and Paulson. He used to work with him. And he says, my boss used to ask me to accompany him from Bombay to Delhi whenever he was going on a meeting. And he says, those days, very, very few people had the luxury to afford air travel. But because he used to take me, I also used to travel by air when nobody else in my family could do that. And he says, one day when we were to go to Delhi and the flight was at 4 p.m., at about 11 a.m., I went to him and I said, sir, thank you. Can I now go? He says, go where? He says, go home to get my bag. So he said, no, you send Ramu to get your bag. And Ramu was the office boy. And he said, ring up your wife. And there was no phone, mobile phone. So he had to make a call on the telephone and say, I'm sending Ramu, get my bag packed, and he'll pick it up. So he said, I worked in the office till 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, we got into the car. In the 1 hour of journey, he gave me some dictations and all. I kept doing all that. 3 o'clock, we reached the airport and went to Delhi. And he says, when we are sitting in the aircraft, the boss tells me, do you know why I didn't let you go home to get your bag? I pay you in those days, in those very good olden days, I pay you 1,200 rupees and I pay Ramu 200 rupees. If my job can be done by a guy who charges me 200 rupees a month, why would I spend a guy who charges me 1,200 rupees a month? Why would I? And he says, see, now your time is more precious to me. Ramu can't do what you can do. You can bring a bag and so can Ramu. But Ramu can't do what you could do. So you wrote so many letters. I gave you so much of work. Even in the car, I didn't waste time. Okay. And therefore, that's the way I used my time. So not many people understand this value of time. The third element I talk about is called compounding of time. And that's most interesting. Not many people have realized that your time is not your time. Your time is somebody else's time. Somebody else's time is your time. Okay, so I asked a CEO once in a training workshop and I asked him, how many hours do you think you are responsible to your company in a day? So he said 8 hours. And I said, how many people report into you? He said 1,000 people. So I said, how many hours do they work? He said 8 hours a day. Then I said, are you responsible to your company for managing 8,000 hours or 8 hours? We don't realize that managing the time of your people is as good, as important. And Zishan, what you're doing to when you employ a person, really speaking, aren't you buying his 8 hours of time per day? And if that guy is working for 4 hours, aren't you wasting half that amount that your salary bill is 50% of the salary bill that a CEO actually utilizes well? And if you were to get down, and when I say compounding of time, I say I will train just the top level of you. I just train the CEO and the first level of reportees, and then I will train you in productivity. And don't you think that effect will trickle down to all the other levels? They say yes. So I said that is called compounding of time, that you make these people productive and they will see a compounding result of that. Then I have something called time wave. You may not have heard of that because that's my term. So I said that normally, there are patterns in life. For example, a wave has a pattern of going up and down, up and down. There's a regular pattern. High tide, the wave goes higher. Low tide, it goes lower. But there's a pattern. But what happens when a storm comes? What happens when a tsunami comes? The pattern is broken. And that is the time that you are governed by that broken pattern, which means you lose control. And that means you then become subservient to that time wave. So are you going to be drowning in the time wave, or are you going to be riding the time wave? Are you going to be surf riding the time wave? So I use this term to say, are you in control of time when there's crisis? And how do you do that? First, you have to train yourself. Like we say, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. The more you train yourself, you discipline yourself, that in a crisis, you will be able to react to crisis much better than a person who's not trained himself. And in the time wave, I say now you draw your curve and mark 4 things. One is called the prime time, which is the time of the day when you are most receptive, when you're most energized, when whatever you receive, you acknowledge it, absorb it better. So that's your prime time. That is the time when you should be doing all your thinking work, your intellectual work. That is the time. Could be early morning, could be late night, when you are on your own, there are no disturbances, there are no phone calls. That is the time you do that work. Then when you do say 2-3 hours of very concentrated work, you are fatigued mentally. And that's the time that you start, losing your energy. It starts dropping down. And when the energy stops dropping down, that is the time that you say it's downtime. That's the time you use for clearing your mails and things like that, routine jobs which don't require much of brain work. And then if you come to something like lunchtime when you are really, really tired, you come into a trough. That means your energy is really low. So you have your lunch break, you have a power nap, you go for a walk, you have your coffee, whatever you do to energize yourself, and you come back with a little better energy. So I call it upslope. In that upslope, you do your second priority jobs. So if you mark these 4 things called prime time, downslope, trough, and upslope, and I explain this in details, it has a profound impact on how you use your time so that you optimize your time in a day. I have a program and I call this the Time Creators Code. And I say I'm not going to be talking about doing more in less time. I'm going to be talking about doing more in more time. And when I say that, I said first create more time, and then in that created more time, do more work. So these are some of the things I talk about, and I quite enjoy it because people receive them well. I get a very good feedback with those few people who take it seriously and apply them. Because I always say success doesn't come from what you learn. Success comes from what you do with what you learn. So that's what I was talking about. Yeah. So any other questions you have?
Yeah.
Any questions from the
Thank you very much
audience?
for that. I think, yeah, I was just going to say before I ask the next question, just if anyone else has any questions, ask them away. You can actually write them down below in the comments or in the questions section as well at the bottom. I think we have quite a few people that have joined. Does anybody have any questions? Or yeah, some people are saying they've tried some of these and they have got really good results in those. I think it's one of those things where we can often say, I think you've touched upon this a little bit, which is imagine your doctors. Imagine doctors. Imagine the fire service, police force, army. If they didn't take time management seriously. Imagine what kind of world we'll be living in if they didn't take it seriously. We'll be in trouble. I think we can be in pretty.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say we'll be pretty much in trouble, especially whether you're on the battlefield, you'll definitely be in trouble. Whether you're a doctor and you don't do things on time, whether it's treatments that you're giving your patients, that can be quite detrimental as well on your patients and so on and so forth. Or if there's a fire, you're right, and you don't in a timely fashion do the right things in terms of preparation as well. I think it's quite important. It's very important. Um,
Yeah.
so one thing I think we often get, is that with young people especially, I think you touched upon the procrastination, which is quite it's like a disease almost, that a lot of people suffer with really. How do you instill the discipline that you need as a person when it comes to staying on time, staying focused on what you need to do, and making sure that you get things done? Because often, if you're not going to achieve the outcomes, which is basically right now it's Monday. So you might make a plan. You might say, okay, for the next, for this week, I want to go to the gym five times. I want to do some outreach work, to get some more business, this week, and I want to maybe outreach to 100 people. Come Friday, you find that you only went to the gym once, and maybe you only, outreach to about 5 or 10 people, which can be quite demotivating, and then people just give up. That element of just giving up. How do we not get to that stage, right, where we just give up because we didn't, achieve XYZ that we set out initially on Monday, say for example?
When somebody asks me which is the most important time management tip, and I say out of all the time management tips, there's only one thing that you have to do right in the beginning, and that is called self-discipline. Because without that, nothing can happen. And self-discipline is to be understood. What does it mean? And there's a simple definition which I follow, and that is doing what you ought to do when you don't feel like doing something or when nobody is watching you. Two things. When you don't feel like doing something and when nobody is watching you. If you can train yourself to make sure you know what you need to do. So you decide, I want to go to the gym, but then you feel sleepy and you say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And you leave it to tomorrow. And that's the time you have to tell yourself, no, I need to go to the gym. And Tony Robbins says, take your first baby step. And what is the first baby step? Put on your one PT shoe, your sports shoes. Just on one foot, you put your PT shoe on. You'll never go back to bed again. You'll put on the other one and go to the gym. So you have to learn how to take that first step. First step. Oh, I can see Hema Chavda joining in. That's very nice of her. Hema is there on the so she and her husband own a very nice company called VNR Seeds. So yeah, very happy to see her. Okay, so great. So you have to discipline yourself. And another thing, Zishan, I want to tell you that some people are not able to do it. There's only one way. When you are going in a car and you're not able to manage your own direction, you need somebody to help you with navigation. In life, when you don't go the way you want to, you have to have a coach. You must find a coach for yourself. And somebody who can nudge you, somebody who can apprise you that you are not doing what you need to do. We all need somebody to guide us, to navigate us, and show us the direction. Because in this complete jungle of madness, you are likely to lose your way. And when you lose your way, your GPS needs to be activated. And you have to have somebody who can activate your GPS. See, in your life, you need a direction. And this is more about goal setting than really time management, but they are both so correlated. I need to have my direction right. Because if there's a plane which takes off from Mumbai for New York, and even if it is deviated by half a degree or even 1/10 of a degree, 1/100th of a degree, it'll never reach New York. It'll reach somewhere else. So you need to know your direction. You need to have your speed right. Okay. But if you don't have your speed right, you'll reach there late, but you'll reach New York. But if you have your direction astray, so just that 1 degree, and we have to worry about that 1 degree in life. So in time management also, I tell people, if your life is already deviated by 5 degrees, then a coach can bring you back by 2 degrees. You'll get closer to your goal. Even if you don't reach there, you'll get closer. So if you're on your own, your deviation will keep increasing. If you have a coach, he'll help you come back. He'll navigate you back. And this is also very easily understood if you understand the game of golf, that when you are hitting a ball, you know the direction. And if there was no flag there at the end of the green, You would know where to go now. If you went left or right, that flag keeps you, making you know the right direction. So the
Yep.
flag here, the red flag here, is a coach who tells you which way to go. Zishan,
Question,
in
guys.
fact, I have a question, but let's see if we have some more questions coming up. Otherwise, I have a question for you.
Yep.
And the question for you is, you are such an expert on digital marketing, and I really love the type of work you do. Tell me, where do you find a common relationship between time management and digital marketing? Do you think that they are related? Do you think that if you are timely in your marketing campaigns, or if you do the right thing at the right time, it matters? And if you are not able to catch a situation, you may miss out an opportunity. What do you have to say to time management in digital marketing?
Absolutely. So whilst I answer this, guys, definitely come up with your questions. You can leave them down below, and we'll definitely answer them as we can see them. Hopefully, um, we'll have time to answer them as well at the end. But yeah, so like some of you may know or you may not know, I do digital marketing, and when it comes to time management and digital marketing, it's very, very important. It's really the part where we can actually develop a discipline. So we touched upon that, and Social also touched upon that, where we need a level of discipline to be able to do the things that we need to do. You know, so for example, when I'm creating a strategy for a client of mine, we can't do all the things on week one. We need to gradually, work towards them, because a lot of people may not know who you are, and they may not know your services. So we have to build that trust, and so we have to do that in a timely fashion, and that's quite important. A lot of people, a lot of businesses out there that don't really do digital marketing as such, or haven't done it really much, especially on a digital platform, they'll always default to a direct marketing, which is kind of like, let me put this in front of you, yes or no. Do you want this or not? Yes or no. And we don't really necessarily want to give people the yes or no immediately. We want to give that later on, when they know who you are and they've built a relationship with you, and they've learned about you a little bit as well. So that's quite important when it comes to time management as well, because we have to do that in a timely fashion at the right moment. We can't do that immediately as well. And I think also, I mean, we speak, sometimes I have coaches and I have mentors, I have people that I look up to, and they know what they are doing every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes, they know where they are. They know when they're going to take the break. They know what meeting they're going to have. So it's quite important. And so I think that's quite key as well to notice as well, because that's what I often do. I often look at people that are doing really well and see what they do. And they always talk about time. They always talk about, I need more time, and this is why this is important, and this is why that is important. So I think that's quite key as well. And to also have patience as well. Sometimes we'll rush things, we'll rush a strategy, right? We'll rush an idea, we'll rush an action, because we didn't have the patience as well. And I think that's quite key as well to have as well in a time, when it comes to time management and that sort of thing as well. Let's see if there's any other
So
questions.
incidentally, I do a podcast called Zindagi Unplugged, if some of you have been hearing that.
Yeah.
And in Zindagi Unplugged also, I've covered many of these aspects, including there are a few episodes on time management, there are a few on self-discipline and all that. So that is another place you can take my content.
So we're going to be on this live for probably another 5 minutes or so. So if you've got any questions, definitely let us know. If you've enjoyed this live, definitely let us know. Give us some instant feedback with those hearts and in the comments. We'll really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I would be very happy if in these few minutes that we have, if you can give us some of your questions or even comments on what have you tried, what works for you, what are your challenges, or which are the tips you try and they work very well for you, because that could be a good way of sharing knowledge.
Mm. I think one tip I'll give quickly is, sometimes I'll do the list tip, like the priority list kind of tip that a lot of people do. And often I'll also put like I'll put it in my phone, because I want reminders, right? So I want my phone to essentially be used where I don't just make a list and hopefully I remember the list, but also it reminds me. So maybe, for example, if I've got emails to check, maybe there's some important emails that I need to double check. So I'll put a time kind of like reminder for myself. That often does help me in terms of replying to that message or doing whatever action that I need to do. That's quite important as well. But also, I think the other tip I will give people is often you need to put yourself around like-minded people, people that will often, be on the grind or be on the hustle or be very good when it comes to time management. Because if you are surrounding yourself with people that are, not very conscious enough, don't have that conscious when it comes to time management, often you'll be also, guilty of that as well, and you'll fall into those bad habits and those traps as well. So if you want to, like I know people right now, so often I get on a call, on a daily call where we call it young hustlers. So if you're a person who, wants to be on, wants the accountability and wants time management and those type of things as well, you can surround yourself by people. There are so many people out there. Right now I'm using an app called Clubhouse, which is very popular right now. It's only on invite only, and people are using that very, to be surrounded by like-minded people. You can get into groups where with other entrepreneurs who are investors, who are maybe knowledgeable on startup and marketing and different things. And these are people that are making 10 million, 100 million, maybe even a billion as well. There's some great people and great, coaches and mentors on there that you would typically have to pay $50,000, $100,000 just to be in the same room as them. So definitely, take this opportunity like you have done today. We really do appreciate that. I'm just going to read some of these comments to make sure that I don't miss anything.
No, that's very powerful. What you said was, like Sam Cotton talks about proximity is power. And if you hang around with people who manage their time well, if you hang around with good people, then you will pick up a lot from them. And I think it's very important. And when I said time is life, so you be better very careful about whom do you give your life to. Because when I give you 5 minutes of my time, actually I give you 5 minutes of my life. So let me not give my life to people who don't deserve it. I think working through manageable small tasks works really well, and you get more done during the day. I also believe working at the optimum time, your brain is alert as a scientist. Absolutely, absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's exactly, I think, I don't know whether you were there when I was covering this about the time wave. And that's what I explained this with the example of a time wave. So yeah, Zia, that's right.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember is that what works for you may not work for somebody else. That's quite key here as well. I think this is probably what's being mentioned, which is, some people, they work really well early morning. They'll wake up, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and by midday they've probably got most of what they need to have, get done essentially. But then there's other people who work better maybe during the evening, during the night or late hours as well. But if it gets done, then that's quite important as well. I guess it
Yeah,
depends
so
on who
Zishan,
you are.
early morning is actually the best.
Mm,
Undoubtedly, there are many reasons. So though I also like to work late night,
mm,
but I do get convinced by the 5 a.m. club. So both Tony Robbins and Robin Sharma, they talk about this 5 a.m. club. And because you have had a nice night's sleep, and when you get up at 5:30, when the whole world is sleeping and there's no disturbance, at night also the whole world is sleeping and there's no disturbance. That is common. But what is happening is at night you are working with a fatigued mind. In the morning you are working with your fresh mind.
mm.
So it makes a lot of difference. So it is absolutely a personal choice what you do, but certainly you have to decide which one works for you, because all of us are wired differently. All of us have our own comfort levels. But really speaking, uh, you need to find your own time. Okay, Sukhveer is asking a question. He said, I really want to ask you how to stop thinking about everything that always happens in our mind whenever we do some concentrating work. Yeah, so this is a very big problem, and all of us have it. Even I have it. You keep combating it, it comes back again. You see, our mind is a monkey's mind. It's a wandering mind. The thoughts keep going. So Sukhveer, one is that you have to do exercises on focusing of the mind. Secondly, after, there's a Pomodoro system. So you come to me In fact, I've also covered it in one of my videos. So see it on my YouTube channel or get in touch with me. I'll explain this to you. In Pomodoro, you work in half an hour chunks. And in that half an hour, you make sure that everything is kept aside. And you have to discipline yourself that in that half an hour, I will not do anything else. And you have to practice this. You know, you have to practice this. Like you'll say, sir, how do we have these muscles? Well, you go to the gym every day and you'll get muscles after a few months. It doesn't happen right on the first instance. So similarly, you have to exercise your mind. You have to exercise and bring on a habit. And habit is when you do something repeatedly every time at a particular time in a particular sequence, it becomes a habit. So you have to form a habit of concentration on your work and not letting your mind drift away. You have to create this habit. And there is no pill for it. You can't go to a chemist shop and buy a pill, or nor can I give you a tip, that one tip and it'll happen. You will have to practice. But yes, there are some exercises to keep your mind in focus. But you have to work on it. You have to just work on it. There's no other option.
Yeah. So, some people may, I think, struggle with, spending an hour without any interruptions. I think sometimes what you might want to do as well is, as a tip, is, say, I'm going to give 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes of dedication, no distraction, put your phone away, no distractions at all, and just go, 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 whatever that task is, whether you're revising for something, whether you're working on a particular area of a project, do that, and then reward yourself maybe with a 5 or 10 minute break or something, and then go again, right? So have that cycle as well. That often works really well, especially if you're revising. I know I used that when I was studying, and other people have also mentioned that one as well. But that's really important. That's really important. I don't know if and we could probably end on this, right? Let's talk lastly about, in the last 5 minutes or so, about mentality and mentally being tough enough to stay focused, to stay disciplined, especially with our time management. David Goggins mentions that, when he goes for his marathons and he's running and he's working out, he doesn't listen to music because he doesn't want to rely on something to give him the motivation to work out. He just wants to be able to motivate himself by himself without having to drink something. Like some people I know, like, love to have coffee, 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 maybe 5 times a day, or Red Bull or whatever it is to stay alert. But without having to stay, rely on something, how can we maybe, stay on top of that? Do you ever see that as an obstacle where mentally maybe people feel like they can't stay on top of something because they rely on other things too much? Yeah, but I think
So
that's
what
really
you're
what
saying is right. I got very little gist of it, but absolutely true. You have to be absolutely conscious of all this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Try to find ways to motivate yourself, essentially.
So
Said,
at the end, I like to say two
yeah,
things. One is,
go ahead.
if you really want to master some of these things, I've given the link, Amazon link of my book. Buy this book; it'll do you very good, because this book is also a workbook. And after every chapter, you are required to write down how does the chapter relate to you in your life. So there are reflections and actions, and when you do that, you will learn from your own. This book makes you probe into yourself to find out how you want to handle your time. And the second thing is, I have regular workshops on time management. Register for them, come and attend them, and we'll get lots to exchange ideas on time management.
Great.
Actually, it's not time management, it is life management. You can't manage time. Time will continue going at the same speed. What you're
Yeah,
managing is your life. So let's talk about life management.
yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can't control time, so find a way to use it as much as you can in whatever you're doing. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. I want to thank our guest, Brigadia Sushil Bhasin. Thank you so much for joining us and answering the questions and really giving us tips that can really definitely help us. Because one thing I wanted to make sure is that making sure that this live we'll have practical tips. So thank you for everyone for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for liking the video. If you haven't already, please do like the video and tell your friends about it. Hopefully we'll if Instagram allows it, we'll definitely try to share this around and share it on this platform on Zishan 10X. which is this Instagram live, and hopefully in other places like LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, hopefully as well. So, Sushil, thank you so much. Hopefully you can hear me.
Thank you,
Really
Zishan.
appreciate
Very
it.
kind of you to get me here. And I don't know about you, but I enjoyed the interaction and I loved it. And I'm sure
Thank you.
people here, they brought in a lot of energy for us. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. This was like the first episode, so we do really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll do more like this. So definitely give us a follow both of us, and definitely stay in touch. And if you've got any questions, you can always send us a message through the DMs or emails. So thank you so much, and I'll see you later.